Market Journal, television for agricultural business decisions, is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.
Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine.
Hello everyone, I'm Troy Moling and thanks for joining us today on Market Journal. Glad you could spend a little bit of your week here with us. We've got Mike Briggs making a return to today's show, and we're going to introduce you to the newest member of the Market Journal team at the end of the broadcast too. Good stuff in store. First though, February 8th was a day that many had marked on their calendars. It was the day when 62 USDA reports that had been in limbo due to the government shutdown were finally released. Tredas commodity trader Doug Simon joined me on the show to help digest the information and hit some of the major points.
Well, the report, that was probably the most widely anticipated. Farmers don't usually like USDA reports, but they were really asking, hey, what's going to be in this report? Are we going to have anything bullish in there? And the report was really pretty boring. It didn't come out, it came out really close to expectations. The privates have been looking at all the numbers and trying to anticipate what was going to go on before, and the numbers really came in close to what the expectations were. The big numbers, Nebraska, 192 on the corn yield, which was their record. I think Iowa did not have a record, but if you look at the other states, Illinois and Ohio, Indiana, they had records this year. So national crop yield was at 176, which is up there. It's a big number. They did drop the production about 400 million bushels from that high number they had in September, and it's down about 200 million bushels from the last report. So we did have a drop in the production, which is something I think people were anticipating with a little lower yield, a little lower acres. And then on the soybean side, Nebraska was 59 bushel on the yield, which is number 2 in the country. That's, I think, just after, I think Iowa was 65, and Indiana and Ohio had records. Iowa didn't have a record this year, but so we had a little lower on the production and the acres on the soybean side. And interestingly enough, we cut the production there. And on the soybean side from where we were earlier as well. The numbers are a little bit higher in the kind of the September, and so we've come down just a little bit on those numbers as well.
And worldwide, what were some of the things that stuck out to you?
That was the biggest changes. When you look at the soybean crop going down in Brazil from 122 million metric tons down to 117, and CONAB, one of the Brazilian estimators, came out today, and I think they're at 115 million metric tons. But that's a pretty sizable drop. And then they also cut the Argentine and Paraguay crops by 1 million metric tons. So you had a pretty good drop in production there. Interestingly enough, they also boosted the stocks in Brazil by 6 million metric tons on their old crop, and they cut the Argentine stocks by 10 million metric tons. So when you looked at those net changes down there, they ended up dropping their stocks by about 3 million metric tons. So fortunately, we've kind of pulled some of the production and some of the stocks out of Brazil. They also cut Chinese demand by 2 million metric tons. And I think last time I was here, I talked about FAS, the Foreign Ag Services, that we've been up to about 103 million metric tons. So we've lost about 15 million metric tons out of Chinese demand. So that really hurts. And that's, when you look at that drop in Chinese demand, that's about 600 million bushels of imports. And you look at the big increase in the U.S. carryover up to 900 million bushels, that's a large part of that increase in the carryover.
And also, these reports gave us our first real look at winter wheat. What do we see here?
110-year low in winter wheat. I think last year when I talked about it, it was like a 90-year low, back when my grandfather was born. So it's been a long time ago. So it's going to leave, when you look at those acres and you look at the production, even though those acres are lower, they're kind of anticipating that production will be about the same as last year, but they're showing our exports on wheat being a little better. And we'll actually see a drop, in the carryover on wheat for next year, which actually is a little more constructive for the wheat market.
Okay, reports have been released, so where do we go from here? Doesn't look like we're going to be dealing with another shutdown, so that's good. But we've always got trade to focus on, planting. We had Luke Beckman here last week. He said the safrinha crop in Brazil was a big story. What are you and some of your colleagues tracking now?
You're looking at rainfall still in Brazil. They're having some pretty good rains this week, and they're still showing normal to maybe slightly above normal precip going forward. That Brazilian, safrinha second crop that they plant. It's in a tropical area. You're moving into a drier season. So the correlation between February moisture and final crop size isn't great, but we'll really have to watch it as we go into March and April. They've got about 40% of it planted versus 20% typically. So you're going to be, watching that weather down there because that has a big impact. Their corn yields are more variable on that safrinha crop than say like their soybean yields are. So that's going to be important. And then you go into the U.S. I mean, we're moving into our weather period here where we're going to start worrying about how much we're going to plant, what the growing season is going to be like. El Nino to neutral conditions seem to be prevailing, which tend to be more favorable. But then I've got people asking me, they're hearing about drier, longer periods in the summer. Is that going to come forward? We're just going to have to wait till we get out here a little bit further to see that. But obviously those acres, what we plant, what we're allowed to plant based on the weather, and how our summer weather is going to have a big impact on us. When you look at those world corn numbers and drop out China, we've tightened those things up, which gives you a little more hope on the corn balance sheet, which is good. The soybean sheet is pretty heavy, but there's some optimism. We should be able, if you look at the prices seasonally, whether it's oil or corn or soybeans or cattle, you tend to have seasonal lows about now here, tend to have some rallies going forward into the spring, which is good. I'm not wildly bullish, but hey, there's some hope out there because we've sold off recently on corn and hopefully see some seasonality, but we want to be selling as we get any positivity going forward here.
The USDA will release cattle reports at the end of the month. Once that happens, we'll have our livestock analyst on the show to go through it all. And whether you specialize in grain, cattle, or something else, keeping up with the ever-changing world of agriculture can be hard for a farmer to do on their own. That's why Nebraska Extension puts on the Successful Farmer Series to help growers learn about the newest research, technology, and marketing strategies needed to better their farms. Market Journal's Mattie McIntosh has the story.
Soil health, I think we've already talked quite a bit about soil health, and they're calling it regenerative.
On January 4th, the 2019 Successful Farmer Series kicked off once again. During each of the 6 sessions held at the Lancaster Extension Education Center, nearly 40 participants, including local producer Larry Hedkins, were able to hear a variety of extension educators and professionals speak on topics currently affecting the agriculture industry.
When you go all the way from climate change to marketing to agronomy to recommendations and the climatology, our local agent educator here, he just does a whale of a job on that. It's something that probably I wasn't much interested in years past, but I produce for consumers. Consumers are really interested in it, so we better know what's going on and understand why they think the way they do.
UNL professors Corey Walters and Dr. Stephen Benzinger were each presenters during the series. For them, it gives them the chance to connect with local farmers and help them find solutions for the challenges they are facing.
So the idea behind the series is just to continue education in a variety of different topic areas that are of financial interest to farmers.
Well, I personally like Successful Farmers because I think in the global world, choice has become everything, and information is the coin of the realm. So the Successful Farmer Series is critical because it allows growers to make the decisions that they're going to need to compete in a global market.
For Larry, the series gives him a way to hear about changes in the agriculture industry and learn from not only the presenters, but from his fellow farmers as well.
It's been 50 years since I sat down in a classroom at the university, and things have changed, and just the practical way that the information is presented, the examples, and then I particularly like the questions from the other participants. That draws out the presenter's presentation, even makes it more relevant.
And even though the 2019 sessions just wrapped up, Larry says he is already looking forward to next year's Successful Farmer Series.
The questionnaire today was, will you attend next year? And if there's a way to sign up today, I'll sign up for next year too. Lord willing and health there, I'll be here next year again.
Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Mattie McIntosh.
The 2019 Successful Farmer Series is archived online, and we've posted a link on the Market Journal Facebook page. It's time for this week's trivia question, and maybe your child or one of your grandkids likes to color with crayons. A lot of crayons are made from wax, but some are made from soybean oil. This leads into today's question about how many crayons can be made from 1 acre of soybeans. Is the answer 27,000, 44,000, 65,000, or is it 82,000? Make your guess, and I'll have the answer after Al's forecast. Well, color me excited for this. Time for markets, and we've got Mike Briggs from Briggs Feed Yard out in Seward, Nebraska, back on the show this week. We had a lot to talk about, and I began by asking him what impact the trouble in D.C. has been having on the cattle industry.
It put us in a little bit of a disadvantage because you didn't know what the positions were as far as the Board of Trade was, as far as where were the funds, because anymore it's pretty important to know which side of the market the funds are on. The other thing that was probably most needed in my mind is we weren't allowed to see the weekly slaughter weights. So the packers have known for 2 months that weights are declining. We assumed they were declining, but we really didn't have any proof of that. Well, now as those reports catch up, we can kind of see that carcass weights are dropping fairly rapidly.
And one thing I thought that was interesting with the grain reports that came out, so the corn used for feed number was lowered by the USDA. So why do you think that is, especially when you see the big production of livestock that's still going on?
Well, the corn feed usage is the one column that they really can't measure. The other things they measure, and then that's just kind of a swag, and I think that's what they do. They get to the end and go, well, that's what we'll figure it, so it balances out. I really don't think, I think it's a lot of guesswork. I think that's really it, so I don't put a lot of stock into it.
Okay, so grain reports came out, cattle reports going to be out later this month. Anything in particular that you're excited to see with those?
I think you're going to see excellent marketing numbers because we've seen the slaughter numbers, so obviously marketings have got to be good. I think feedlots are very current right now. I don't think there's a great availability of cattle-ready, market-ready cattle. So I think there's a lot of things in our favor, plus eventually winter will loosen its grip and we'll get towards grilling time.
Yeah, it's cold out here right now, that's for sure.
Yes, it is.
So we were talking about how things are looking right now. How's that compared to how we're looking compared to this time last year?
Well, you know, we've seen a big upswing in our economy, and anytime people have a little more money in their pocket, they seem to want to upgrade their protein choices, so that's really favors us quite a bit because you don't see the demand in chicken like you usually do. So it's been nice. It's been a nice uptick for us. I don't know if we can continue that. I think a lot of the increase is going to have to come from the export markets going forward.
All right, so we had John back in June, and we asked about China. And of course, we don't send a lot of beef to China, but you said when it comes to trade and the issues that are tied up with that, you were expecting, this is a quote, short-term pain for long-term gain. Is that still where your head's at?
Well, that's exactly where we are. We've had a little pain here, but it's wonderful in my mind that America is actually gaining some leverage on China. Their economy is struggling. The support for President Xi may not be as good as thought before. So we're finally going to get ourselves where maybe we can leverage this thing. And one of the things China has already said they're going to do to help balance the trade imbalance is buy a lot of commodities. So hopefully that's a big help to us as we go on down the road.
All right. And gotten a lot of emails from folks. They say, we miss Mike, we really value his opinion. So they want to know any short or long-term marketing recommendations you have for them.
I think where we are right now, this has been a really tough winter. Bad winters have kind of a long tail. In other words, you're going to see the effects from that for a long time. You're going to see lower carcass weights, so that's less beef produced. So I think we're going to be in good shape from that standpoint. I don't think numbers get on top of us maybe till the end of May, first part of June, which is kind of typical. I think you've backed some cattle up a little bit. So I think the market's in good shape here. Going into probably June, we're gonna run this market up during our growing time, probably in an April type thing. And I think it would really behoove people to get themselves covered up at that point because I think late summer is gonna be a crappy market like it always is. I don't see it being any different this year. So I think the market's gonna give you a chance to lock in some profits, and I think you ought to do that.
Anything in particular or specific that you do differently in the winter versus the summer when you're thinking about marketing your cattle?
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of contracting cattle. Hedging cattle is fine as long as you have a big enough margin, but you never want to run around 100% hedged in the winter because, man, when Mother Nature wants to bring the wood, there's nothing you can do about it, and she's bringing the wood this year. So to get yourself covered, overly covered, you've got to have the up in the market to make up for the downfall in your performance from the bad pen conditions and the tough weather. So don't get yourself overextended on your coverage, but when the opportunity arises here, when this thing sticks its head up, I still think a guy needs to get himself, have some protection on.
And another big thing that's making news, fake meat. I know you wanted to speak on that a little bit, kind of give everybody a refresher on what that is and why the cattle industry is so opposed to it.
Fake meat in my mind is anything that is not the muscle of an animal. So if it's a soy protein or some kind of vegetable protein, or if it's grown in a test tube somewhere, that's not meat. As we go on through time, society becomes more and more urban and less rural. People don't know where their food comes from. Some people don't even know what they're eating. So it's pretty easy for a manufacturer to maybe throw some confusion in there and people aren't getting what they think they're getting or what they really want. And I think it's important to differentiate our product as real beef and not something that was grown in a test tube or grown out of the ground.
So last question, what's your prediction over the next several months?
Well, I still think, like I said earlier, I think we're going to have a nice up into the spring. Then I think at some point we're probably, you're going to run into the dog days of summer, and I think that's going to hurt demand, and we're going to have a lot of cattle during that time period. So I don't think the end of the summer is going to be a very good marketing time again. And then hopefully it picks back up going into the fourth quarter. I don't see any reason it can't be fairly typical as far as those types of things. And you always have the wild card. If China wants to step in here and buy a lot of meat, then the market could be better than we think.
Next week, we'll be joined by Todd Holtman, a DTN grain market analyst. So if you have a question that you'd like for me to ask him, email us or get in touch on social media, and I'll pass your question along. Moving on now, and the weather didn't cooperate, and the 2018 season was challenging for double cropping winter wheat and soybeans in east central Nebraska. After planting winter wheat for the first time in fall of 2017, Chad Christensen's 40-acre wheat field endured a cold, wet April. A wetter than normal May and June didn't help either. The weather delayed wheat harvest about 2 weeks. However, Christensen has tripled down on double cropping, planting about 120 acres in winter wheat this past fall, with plans to double crop those acres with soybeans next summer. You can read about Christensen's double cropping practices in the February Nebraska Farmer. Time now for weather with Nebraska Extension ag climatologist and Market Journal chief meteorologist Al Dutcher. And Al, this week we had some snow, we had some sun, we had some rain. How are we looking in the days ahead?
Well, Troy, you're exactly correct. We have seen some wild weather over this last week. We've had two systems of major importance move through the state. The first one, of course, late this weekend and in the early part of the week brought a mixture of freezing drizzle, freezing rain, and light snow to a considerable portion of the eastern part of the state. Did cause some traffic problems, and then more importantly, as we got into Thursday evening and yesterday morning, we seen another system. When we got that cold air come through with the dry front on Thursday, we actually seen another wave moving eastward that basically overrun that cold air, and we seen a area of accumulating snowfall from northwest to southeastern Nebraska. Most of the areas received anywhere from 1 to 4 inches of snowfall accumulation, and now we have yet another system that looks like it's going to move through the region that is going to generate some more additional accumulating snowfalls, particularly tonight into the morning hours of tomorrow. And then we'll watch a couple more waves next week that have the potential to generate some lighter snowfall, and if they move a little bit farther north, maybe some major accumulating snowfalls across the central United States. So currently what we have is a piece of energy come out of the U.S. Western Trough that is starting to eject out into the southern plains. That will basically cause the low pressure system that's going to form in northern Texas to be able to pump moisture up over top of the cool air that sits over the northern plains. And we should generate some accumulating snowfall across north central Nebraska, and that will move toward the southeast as we go through the overnight hours. Most of the major accumulations over Iowa. Then that jet core moves to our east as we go into tomorrow. takes a surface low over into the mid-Tennessee River Valley. You see another surface low over in western Texas. There may be just enough lift to generate some accumulating precipitation, particularly over Iowa and points to the east. Now, as we get into the day on Monday, that major jet core slides off the eastern seaboard, takes most of the significant moisture with it into the mid-Atlantic region. We have high pressure over the northern plains that is going to start sliding to the south. Although we are showing some flurry activity here, I don't think we're going to be worrying about anything significant as they'll be well to our east. But more importantly, we will see this trough strengthen over the southern plains as we go on the day on Tuesday. That is going to start to pump up some significant moisture back up into the central Corn Belt and possibly generating some heavy snow, rainfall to the southeast, but accumulating snowfalls to the north of it. Southeast Nebraska may be on the northern periphery of it. And then that system moves into the Ohio River Valley, takes most of the major precipitation once again with it to our east. Very heavy precipitation once again over the southern United States and heavy accumulating snowfalls, unfortunately, for the Ohio River Valley. And as we get on the day on Thursday, the trough reestablishes itself, injects another piece of energy out into the central United States. So we are going to be looking at the potential for a low pressure system to form and generate precipitation all the way up into the central Corn Belt and eastern Corn Belt. And then on Friday, this system slowly migrates. So we're going to continue that trend for accumulating snowfall. A bunch of series of low pressure systems, but this is the primary one generating all the major moisture. The ones to our north, although they are showing accumulating moisture, it really will be robbed from this system that moving to our east. Now, as we look even further in time, CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, indicates from next Friday through the following Tuesday, we see significantly below normal temperatures, and in terms of precipitation, widespread above normal moisture. I think that that area may be pushed a little bit farther to the east in terms of the cold weather, and we're looking for some type of break as we get into the last full week of the month from these colder temperatures. In regards to the current El Nino event, it's been officially declared an El Nino with an El Nino watch in place to keep us going through at least the spring months. I'm seeing subsurface heat content that will keep this event going on all the way through the summer, so we'll keep you up with updates later in the year.
Thanks, Al. Back to trivia now, and this week we asked how many crayons can be made from 1 acre of soybeans? The answer is D, about 82,000 crayons, 82,368 if we want to be exact. For our final story today, this month marks the beginning of the 34th Annual Women in Ag Conference. Female farmers and ranchers are heading to Kearney, Nebraska to attend a conference that seems to be getting more popular each year. Market Journal's Bill Dodd has more.
With the number of female ag producers on the rise in the state of Nebraska, it's no surprise that a conference like this one is paramount for women in the fray of such a demanding profession.
So we have seen higher numbers of principal operators who are female in the state of Nebraska. And that's one of the reasons why the Women in Agriculture program is so important, because we are seeing women make critical decisions for Nebraska farms and ranches.
With women becoming more and more prevalent in the ag industry, the role they play in day-to-day operations and critical decision-making is growing. More and more female producers are taking charge in a variety of ag operations.
No matter what position they take, they're a part of that decision-making process. And so the theme Take Charge of Change is really about empowering them to assist in making those decisions or make those decisions themselves. And we know that there's a lot of things happening in agriculture, whether it's changes in regulation or whether it's major weather events. There are so many opportunities for us to not just go with the flow, but really take the wheel and drive these farms and ranches into the future.
While women seem to be taking up heavier roles on farms and ranches in recent years, the Women in Ag Conference has been tackling issues for female ag producers for decades.
This is the 34th year of the Nebraska Women in Agriculture Conference. We're the longest running university-led conference like this in the country. And we know that women play a vital role in the agriculture economy, and so anytime that we can get women together to talk about what challenges they're facing and how to take charge of those decisions is a great opportunity. So we continue to host this conference in an effort to provide them with that networking opportunity, as well as get those questions answered that they might have related to production agriculture.
When it comes to taking charge of change, this year's Women in Ag Conference has you covered. Reporting for Market Journal, I'm Bill Dodd.
You can find more information and register for the conference at wia.unl.edu. And we're joined now by Bill Dodd, who covered that story and is the newest member of the Market Journal team. Bill, we're happy to have you.
It's great to be here, Troy.
So we've been looking to expand the Market Journal team, and with Bill here now, we thought it would be a good time to take a couple minutes and let everyone watching know about some plans we have for the show and some of our goals for the program.
Yeah, that's right. Just because Troy's the only person you see on camera here, we want you to know that we have other people, including myself, who you don't normally see, who work really hard to get the show on the air each week.
Yeah, and maybe you noticed we've been introducing some new segments over the past few weeks. We have our trivia quiz, we've got some new graphics, we've been presenting the show in a little bit of a different way, and we've even been airing some stories that focus on the human interest side of agriculture also.
That's right, but don't think we're going to change everything. We're going to keep doing our weekly market segments, and we'll continue to talk with some of agriculture's leading minds to help you make the best decisions for your operation. Now, agriculture is about more than that, though. It's also about the people and their stories.
Yeah, and TV's the perfect way to do that. I've been in broadcasting for over 16 years. Bill, you've got a number of years in the industry too, right?
Yeah, that's right. During that time, I've been all over the state telling people stories, and some of my favorites have always been telling the stories of people in the agriculture industry.
Yeah, and lifelong Nebraskan right here too, huh?
Yeah, that's true. I actually still help out on my wife's family farm when she lets me.
When she lets him, that's the key word, I think, right there. But yeah, Bill and I are grateful to you, our viewers, that you trust us to tell the stories that matter to you each week. So now that you know a little bit about what we're planning, we want to hear from you. It could be to tell us about a farmer who's really doing something special and you want others to know about it.
Or stories focused on planting, growing, harvesting, marketing the crops that matter to you.
Yeah, and we've got livestock issues, policy issues, rural life, food. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, and here's our information on the screen. That's Mattie McIntosh, the other member of our team on that graphic there. You can email us, call us, or get in touch with us on social media, and we'd be happy to discuss it. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, we sure do. And we'll have even more to tell you about in the coming weeks. That's going to do it for this week's show. Hope to see you right back here next time. I'm Troy Moling.
I'm Bill Dodd. Thanks for watching.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.